A man who is dared to streak in college is no more a threat to my kid than walking to the school bus every morning. There's a website, it's called courtclerk.org. On that website, I can get the complete criminal history of anybody in the Hamilton County area. It is not listed by severity of the crime. It doesn't list what crime. You search by name, whoever is at interest. If a person moves in next door to me, rather than putting a sign in their front yard, I find out their name, I look them up, and I get my answers. Now, say we were to put a sign in this person's front yard. Sex offender moves in next door to me. I've got 3 little kids. I want to move. Who's going to buy my house? It's one thing to make criminal records public for anybody to find, view, for the safety of their kids, safety of their families. But it's something completely different to publicly display the choices that a person has made that have negatively inflicted their lives. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. All right, both sides, the prosecution and the defense, have now presented their arguments for should sex offenders be shamed in public. We're going to take a small recess. After that recess, the jury will deliberate their findings and the notes they've taken regarding both sides of the argument. A second recess will then follow. We'll reconvene court, the trial again, find out the findings of the jury at that time. And after they reach the verdict, which has to be unanimous, it cannot be on a 3-4 vote or a 6-1 vote. It must be unanimous. We will distribute the compensation to either the defense or the prosecution in terms of what the points are they received today. All right, until then, we're in recess until jury deliberation.
All right, jury, how did we feel about the prosecution side?
I had a problem with how they just spoke in general. Like, I didn't understand a lot because, for one thing, Serena faced her team.
Okay.
And then Brian stumbled a little bit on just kind of.
I feel like Brian moved way too much. He couldn't really concentrate on what he was saying.
That's what I thought.
I didn't think he sounded very confident.
And then, like, I wrote down that it says, or somebody said that if you have kids, wouldn't you like to know where sex predators live? Well, the thing is, we can find out.
Yeah.
So.
And they
Okay.
only brought up, like, protection, like, that was the only thing that they really had evidence, like, they didn't, have, like, a backup for it.
Erica, how did you feel?
Yeah.
Tell me your thoughts on the prosecution.
I thought the prosecution was weak compared to the defense. And
weak?
they didn't give enough facts, and they more or less repeated everything. Every single person pretty much said the same thing.
Okay.
I think they made a point, but nobody needs to be labeled for life.
All right, so the defense side, I thought Stacy's story, which was a personal story, I felt like that kind of, she had a good opening. She got everybody's attention with that. Katara, I thought sounded very confident in what she was saying. I felt like they had, they backed up what they said. And they also, I think it was Bruce that brought up Megan's Law, maybe.
Yeah.
But not a lot of people knew what that was, but that explained to everybody the difference.
Yeah, and I like that Stacy said that her personal story. She also said that they've done their time. The person she knew did their time, and yes, we all can find out if we want to know exactly where a sex offender lives.
And she also brought up a reason, like, why the sex offenders did what they did. They said, like, because of anger or the reason they were, like, their upbringing. And I think that's a point that, like, not a lot of people take into consideration, why people do what they do. And I think 15 years in prison is a ridiculous amount of time to spend for They also brought up streaking, which I find that should not be considered being a sex offender.
Streaking, flashing, mooning. What was the other ones?
Yeah, streaking, flashing,
Skinny dipping.
I mean, really? So I think that's a huge point.
And urinating in public.
Yeah, urinating in public, like, I've
Come
done
on, guys do that like every day.
I mean, I've done it, so. I think that's a huge point as to why, or just like being dared to do something. Like, I feel like everyone's done something like that.
I think Bruce brought up a good point too about it doesn't just shame them in public. What if you want to move and then like somebody knows a sex offender lives right next to you? It hurts your chances of moving or getting your house.
And it even hurts like the family, like if they were shamed in public, like their family members would be embarrassed.
Yeah.
And probably be treated worse than any other normal person that been treated before.
And Bruce also brought up the Oklahoma case about the girl who was 13 and lied. I think a lot of people that are sex offenders, people don't get the whole story, and it takes two people. And I think they elaborated on that a lot, that it's not just one person, it takes two people to
Yeah.
do the dirty.
I think Randy had some good points and everything. He moved confidently, but he didn't speak confidently. So I think that hurt him a little bit. Plus, also the license plate thing hurt
Yeah.
him a little bit too.
Yeah, he brought up the DUI, how they're publicly
Making some of the
shamed.
defense actually hurt them too.
Yeah.
She barely even got to an argument.
Yeah. She has some good facts, but most of it being from Wikipedia is what's hurt her. So,
I think on Randy's point of like a weekly flyer being handed out, I think that's a little absurd for a weekly flyer of sex offenders to be handed out in your neighborhood.
yeah, I think that's a little bit too much. Like, one thing about it should be fine, but not every week.
Because that would be like the same as posting it on telephone service or putting it in your front yard. It would be the same
Yeah.
thing. And then Randy did touch on when Stacey was talking about how abuse leads to some of the things that sex offenders do. He did say that this isn't viable for venting, and I do agree. I don't think that we should have excuses for sex offenders, but then that's it.
I think most of their side really just talked about protection and how we need to protect our families and ourselves and our neighbors and the community. But the defense also brought up that we can do that without publicly shaming people by just looking it up online. Like, if we're that worried about it and if we're that crazy about it, it's publicly online for everyone to see. So I just don't think that they brought up enough to get us to realize, okay, well, online's not enough.
I think it's crazy that to post a sign in their yard. I mean, murderers do their time instead of sex offenders, and do you have signs out in front of murderers' yards where they live now?
Yeah.
I don't think so. So, sex offenders is even a lesser crime, and why should they have to have them? And having license plates for them while they're driving, that's not going to do any good. Like, I can understand that DUI, people who have multiple DUIs having it, but not sex offenders.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and somebody said that on the prosecution that you have to be punished for a crime you've committed, and we've already gone over that.
Yeah, they were
People
punished already.
punished for their
They
crime.
went to jail for about 15 years.